Hey everybody, it's Mr. Carr again. Today we're going to be talking about 5-2 day 2. Day 2, we're still going to be doing polynomial division, but we're going to focus on something called synthetic division. Okay, so it's a kind of a similar process, but it's got its very own unique thing. We just got to make sure we keep everything in order when we do this. So, let's talk about the steps first, real fast. So basically, step one, solve divisor equal to 0. Okay, solve divisor equal to 0 and write number in box to the left. So what I mean by that is we got our divisor here is x plus 2. If I solve that equal to 0, I get -2. Okay, so -2, I'm going to put over here like this, in a little box. Okay, step 2, list all coefficients of dividend. Oops, I put a T there. List all coefficients of the dividend, including 0 for missing terms. Okay. Now, the other key about this is it has to be in descending order. So x to the fourth, x squared, x, and then no x. Notice how I'm missing x to the third power. So I can treat it like there's a 0x to the third here. And now I can list all the coefficients. So 4, 0, 2, -4, and 12. 4, 0, 2, -4, and 12. Okay. Step 3, draw a line with space under coefficients and bring down first value. Okay, so I'm going to do that here, draw a line, I give it some space, I bring down the first value here and draw there. Now I'm ready to do kind of my algorithm for synthetic division. Okay, so step 4, we multiply. We'll multiply divisor by row of numbers below line. Okay, then write product in the right spot. Yeah, I don't say right spot. In the following spot above line. Okay, so I take this right here, -2 is going to be multiplied by 4 here. That's what we're saying. So I take -2 times 4, gives me -8, and I bring the -8 up here. Okay, once I do that, I'm running out of space here, but step 5 is going to be combine values vertically and repeat. So I take 0 minus 8 gives me -8. Once I do that, it's just repeating that same process. So -2 is going to multiply by -8. So I multiply those together and I get a positive 16. Okay, so that comes up here after multiplication. Combine 2 and 16, I get 18. Then I take -2 times a positive 18, gives me a -36. Combine these numbers, I get a -40. And then we do this times a -40 gives me a positive 80. And that leaves me with a remainder of 92. And I didn't explain that, but as I go through this process here, this is my remainder. Once you've done everything here, the last number is your remainder. Since we're doing division here, this was x to the fourth, x to the third, x squared, x to the first, and then technically x to the 0. Doing the division, since I divided by x here, everything drops 1 degree. So this is now x to the third, x squared, x, and then x to the 0, and that leaves my remainder of 92. So that's what I have to do now. Just like with our long division before, we need to rewrite this. So I'm going to have 4x to the third minus 8x squared plus 18x minus 40. And then I'll do plus my remainder of 92, but divided by the original divisor, x plus 2. Okay, looks just like long division. Okay, the goal is here, we're just finding our coefficients. Let me highlight that. These are going to be the coefficients. And then the 92 is my remainder right there. Okay, so again, one last time in that process. Kind of solve that for 0, so I get the opposite value, -2. Place the -2 here. List all of my coefficients in order, so right there. Drop the first number down, and then I start making that box times everything that's in this row. So -2 times 4 is -8. Combine that to get -8. -2 times -8 is a positive 16. Combine that, I get 18. -2 times 18 gives me -36. Combine for -40. And then -2 times -40 is positive 80. Combine to get 92. Okay, and then rewrite that into its polynomial like this with the remainder. All right, slight extra challenge is if I have something like this. When dealing with this, it's going to look very similar. I can kind of do it in one of two ways. So I'll try to show both as pretty quickly. I am so going to start the same way, which is set that equal to 0. So if I subtract that over, I get -1, divide by 3, and I get -1/3. I'm going to put a -1/3 in this box. Okay. Now, what I'm technically doing here is if I look at each of these terms, because of this being a 3x, I cannot just list the numbers here like so. Instead, I need to take everything divided by 3. Since I divided by 3 right here to turn into this, then I'm going to take everything here divided by 3. These will be the new values that go into when I line them up. So I got 3 divided by 3 is 1. -5 divided by 3 is -5/3. 1 divided by 3 is a 1/3. 7 divided by 3 is 7/3. And I have 0 at the end because I don't have another constant term. I'm going to do the same process using now my fractions. It's a little confusing, but it'll work out okay. So drop the 1 down. So then I do multiplication here again. So -1/3 times 1 is a -1/3. Combine these, I get a -6/3, which is the same as -2. Then I take -1/3 times the -2 is going to give me a positive 2/3. So I can combine these to get 3/3, which is the same as 1. Then -1/3 times 1 is a -1/3. Combine these, I get 6/3. So that's a positive 2. Then -1/3 times 2 is a -2/3. And I combine that to a -2/3. These are still my coefficients. This is still my remainder. Okay, so when I do this now, I started with x to the 4th, so that means this is going to be 1x to the 3rd minus 2x squared plus 1x plus 2 minus 2/3 over my remainder. Now, technically speaking, because of this, what I really did was I did x plus 1/3. Okay, remember, this was positive, it turned negative, and then it's going to come back to being positive in my remainder like that. It's just the opposite idea. So from here, to make it look a little bit neater, we can actually multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 3. So if I do that, I'm going to have 1x to the 3rd minus 2x squared plus 1x plus 2. This will be a minus, and then this will cancel out. So I've got a 2 up here. Distribute the 3, so I have 3x, and then plus 1, because that will cancel out there. Okay, so that makes it a little bit neater to work with. Now that's one option. The other option that may or may not be easier, I'm still going to use 1/3 in the box. Let me go ahead and list the original values. So we have 3, -5, +1, 7, and 0. So if I go down here, so I got 3, I go through my process. So -1/3 times 3 is a -1. Combine these to get to a -6. -1/3 times -6 is a +2, which combines to 3. -1/3 times 3 is going to be a -1, which combines to a 6. And then -1/3 times 6 is a -2. And that just carries down to a -2. Now, since I did this right here with division here, I still got to make up for that. If I look at these values here, compared to these values, it's just everything divided by 3. So again, if I did division by 3 here to get to this number, every one of these numbers gets divided by 3, except the remainder. I'm going to ignore that one. So I can take each of these and divide by 3 now instead of doing it earlier. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. Negative 6 divided by 3 is 2. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. But I'm going to leave that negative 2 there because now it's 1x to the third minus 2x squared plus 1x plus 2 minus my remainder 2, but still over the original divisor, 3x plus 1. I get the same thing. So technically, it doesn't matter if I divide here or I decide to divide here, but just don't worry about dividing out the remainder. That could just go over the original divisor there. Okay, so that's synthetic division. Okay, it gets a little tricky when this value in front, right there, is something that's a number besides 1. Okay, but outside of that, it's still, I think, an easier process than long division. Even with these fractions, I think it's still a little bit easier. Okay, and that's it for today. So take care, everybody. Make sure you understand how to do either both long division and synthetic division with this.